The Lewiston shooting donations for the families.
This is an unbelievable one. Yeah, I mean, it's like
How many people were killed?
18.
18 people were killed.
Yeah. Makes your soul shudder to think about the callousness of I guess the what happened that night, but also the people who seized on it and took advantage of it in the aftermath. So the short version is the same people who are defrauding the Medicaid system came and looted the shooting donations. Somali NGOs came and were given money from the money that was raised for the victims.
Were the victims Somali?
No.
Well, then how did they get the money?
It's a very good question, Shawn. It's a question that the Maine... I do. It's a question that the Maine Community Foundation won't answer. So just to set this up, there's a huge amount of money is raised after the shooting. People from all over the place are sending in money. They want to help. There's an outpouring of support. In true American fashion, there's a coming together of what can we do to help these people?
Yeah.
People are sending money, checks made out to the city of Lewiston, to the Chamber of Commerce. GoFundMes are popping up all over the place. There's just a groundswell of support to do anything we can because these people, 18 people plus the people who were wounded and survived, people who have the psychological or mental injuries from that night, still dealing with therapy, the families that now are missing a caregiver and are going to have to deal with the cost of that, childcare going forward. There's an immense financial burden on these people, and people came out to say, how can we ameliorate that? How can we stop that? At some point, because there was so much money being raised through these different funds, there was a decision made to centralize everything with the Maine Community Foundation. This is a big 501c3 organization. They, like $600 million a year. They manage money. They give out money. They run multiple charitable purposes and do grant giving. This is kind of what they do, charitable giving. So they seemed like a natural group organization to bring legitimacy to the financial, the donations, rather than having like GoFundMe here, GoFundMe here. How the hell do you know if the GoFundMe is actually getting where it's supposed to go? Turns out those GoFundMes might have been more legitimate than what the Maine Community Foundation ended up doing. This MCF, by the way, was blessed by the Mills administration. You go to the Lewiston shooting website that they put up, and it was like, if you want to support the victims, go here. At the beginning, all the representations made by the Maine Community Foundation were that 100% of the money that was given was going to go to the survivors and the victims' families. At some point, there was this splintering where they conceived of this idea of a broad area recovery, is what they called it. Someone conceived of the idea that you've raised, I think it was like $6.9 million. Well, some of that money should go to NGOs. So they split the funds, and they started treating it like it was two separate funds.
Holy shit.
They've never been very clear about how those payments were separated because so much of the money came in before this decision was made. A lot of it was just like Chamber of Commerce, here's $100,000. Some company in Maine, here's $100,000.
How much money was there?
6.9 million.
6.9 million divided by 18 families. Not that much.
No. It ended up being, they came up with a pretty complex formula for who would get the money. And there was also a lot of private charity. I'll say, like, there were a lot of Maine employers stepped up and covered the costs of their employees who were wounded that night and survived. Some of the hospitals in Maine did a good job of basically saying, like, no, you're not gonna have medical costs as a result of this. So there was a lot of private charity that wasn't encompassed by the Maine Community Foundation, but 1.9 million was set aside for these NGOs. And these organizations, this 1.9 million was allocated by a steering committee the Maine Community Foundation created, which included at least 4 NGO heads who steered money to their own organizations. So this is blood-drenched money raised in the aftermath of Maine's worst mass murder. And these NGO heads most of them explicitly migrant NGOs, many of them run by, Somali community leaders, saw it as an opportunity to steer money into their NGOs, their own NGOs. There was no conflict of interest policy. Somehow they were just allowed to steer money to their own organizations, which is just like gobsmacking, the level of, it's just heinous that they would even think to do that. But then once you get these members on the steering committee, all these other little NGOs that are kind of related and they have the same office building. Some of them are in the Gateway Community Services office building, by the way. Gateway Community Services is on the steering committee. Gateway Community Services steers.
Are you serious?
Yeah. They're nonprofit. They have a 501c3 filing. That's, basically the same thing. It just allows them to take money like the Lewiston shooting money that's only available to 501c3s, or government money that's only available to 501c3s. But Nathan Davis, who is the son of State Senator Jill Duson, he runs the nonprofit arm of Gateway Community Services. He's on the steering committee. He steers money to Gateway Community Services from the Lewiston Shooting Fund. Each of these NGOs got over $65,000. And there were a ton of them. Actually, Ayman Osman, who was the Lewiston city councilor who just resigned. He's facing 2 gun theft charges. He also faced allegations that he lied on his campaign finance documents, to pretended he lived in the Somali district in Lewiston to run for city council and won. Didn't live there because the building he listed was an uninhabitable, condemned building owned by his brother. And then after his election, he was charged with, a grand jury indicted him with 2 gun theft charges. And then he lied on his bond documents saying that he lived at that address again, and then resigned after that. And I don't know if the Lewiston police have been able to find him for a bail check yet. But he ran the Lewiston Auburn Youth Foundation.
Oh,
The Lewiston Auburn Youth Foundation got $65,000 from the Lewiston shooting money. So we took money raised for victims of Maine's worst mass shooting and gave it to multiple people, actually, who had been or would be indicted for gun crimes. And the list goes on and on of the Somali organizations that held their hand out for Lewiston shooting money. And for my Substack, I interviewed 4 victims, survivors, family members who were there that night, including a woman who was shot multiple times and was still dealing with the consequences of that. And she talked about having medical bills like $85,000. At the same time, she's learning that the Lewiston Auburn Youth Foundation got $65,000, that Generational Noor got $65,000, that Gateway Community Services got $65,000, that the Somali Bantu Association got $65,000, that the IFCA, AK Health and Human Services, like all of these Somali organizations, which some of them don't even exist anymore. Some of them maybe never existed. Some of them are just like Facebook groups. It's unclear. None of them have given the money back. But like you see, these victims are like, why did the Maine Community Foundation give the money that was raised based on our suffering to these Somali NGOs that did nothing? Nothing. They're not even pretending now that they did anything for the victims. And it's so fucking infuriating because the governor won't acknowledge it. A.G. Fry says that he's looked into it and everything was done on the level. There's nothing for a criminal investigation. The mayor of Lewiston won't acknowledge it. Nobody on the establishment is saying that there's something wrong with this. And I mean, God bless Governor LePage. He grew up in Lewiston, was like poor and homeless in Lewiston, didn't even speak English until he was 11, French speaking. And he came in having just, lost an effort to become governor again. He came to Lewiston, he raised $500,000. Somehow he figured out how to give that all to the shooting victims. Doesn't seem like rocket science.
No kidding.
Seems like, a victim comes with a medical bill. Create a trust, have a trustee. Victim has a medical bill, you pay it. Why do you have to have a steering panel formed of all these, progressive hard leftists and Somali immigrant activists? Yeah, how do you get that money back? But the big picture takeaway of that is, if you have gotten to the point as a Somali NGO head where you're okay showing up, stepping over the dead bodies of Mainers who have just been gunned down and taking $65,000 for a charity. Medicaid fraud is not that big of a deal, is it? Right? If you're willing to do that,
No,
of course you just send an invoice to the Department of Health and Human Services. And I'll say that a lot of this has only reached the level of attention that it has because Amy Sussman, whose nephew Max Hathaway was killed that night, has just been a bulldog on it. Just been like an unsleeping advocate for the victims and their families.
Good for her.
And has chased the Maine Community Foundation to the ends of the earth to try to get some kind of change, some kind of justice. And so far, the Maine Community Foundation just thinks that they can stick their heads in the sand, that they've got enough money, they can wait this out, that there aren't some serious questions about their integrity and how they handled this. A lot of the organizations that they gave money to through the Lewiston Shooting Fund were organizations that they had previously given money to and had previous relationships with. They haven't really said anything about how they're going to rethink the way they handle charitable giving through the foundation. I can tell you, though, that there's, 70-80% of the state are going to be rethinking their relationship with the Maine Community Foundation if they had one.
Yeah, I'll bet.
It's fucked up, that story.
Man, dude.
So many national reporters, my friends in the national media, I've gotten text messages over the last 3 weeks being like, did this really happen? Like Gateway actually took Lewiston shooting money? Iman Osman got Lewiston shooting money? Yeah. And again, this is when we reported on this 18 months ago. We reported on this when it happened.
Nothing.
The mainstream outlets, the corporate outlets in Maine, came in and reported on it and said, no, the AG says everything was fine. All these are upstanding NGOs. What are you talking about? MCF, Maine Community Foundation, they gave us a statement and they said that they everything that they did was above board. So why would you question the statement that the Maine Community Foundation has put out? We've checked this out. All the mainstream outlets just gave them gave it a good leaving alone. Not even a leaving alone. They gave it the stamp of approval that they delegitimized Amy Sussman's complaints. They delegitimized Governor LePage's complaints. Any of the victims, their family members who were concerned about where the money went, the mainstream media came in and said, these people are just fringe wackos. Don't pay attention to the fact that they're dealing with 5-figure medical bills while Abdullahi Ali is cashing $65,000 checks. Don't pay attention to that. Because you're just fringe wackos.
Dead.
Yeah.
No matter where you're watching the Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this at all, anything, please like, comment, and subscribe. And most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, head to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and leave us a review.